Greetings, fellow Hyperboreans. Dave here, the developer of the Hyperborea system for Foundry Virtual Tabletop, bringing you another demo video of some new features that I've released over a few releases over the last few weeks. So today's video is going to cover 4 releases actually, all of which were fairly small. And what we're really going to do is we're going to roll this up into more of a summary because both of the features that I added evolved very quickly. So rather than going all the way back to the beginning and showing you where it was and then how it evolved, we'll just show you the final evolution as of release 1.17.1, which is where we're at right now, as of mid-August 2025. I do actually have another release coming soon, but this is where we're at as of today. So let's talk about what we've got going on here. As I said, I'm not going to go over every release, but we've got 2 major features. There were also a few bug fixes. I'm not going to get into details on those. Most of them were not even user-facing anyway, or if they were, they only affected a subset of people. So we'll talk about the 2 features and dig right in here. So the first one was I wanted the ability to toggle a light source on a token on the map from the character sheet that the token belonged to, so that basically a player could easily do it without having to go into their token properties, and so that a GM wouldn't have to waste their time going into the token properties. So what I did was initially set up a few sort of hard-coded light sources, but then evolved it to just say any item, literally any item, physical item, can be a light source. So what we'll do is I'll just show you a demonstration of this. Actually, let me get over to the to the items here, or better yet, let me just bring up one of the characters so you can see what I'm talking about. So if we look at, I've already got Torch configured here. So the first thing to talk about is the fact that how do you toggle a light source? Well, it's this little light bulb icon. If I click that, let's just slide these over here so you can see this a little better. Whoopsie, sticking to my mouse. There we go. If I click this now right here, you see I get a light source applied UI message, and you can see now Carrick is glowing, the area lit up. I don't have walls set up, so it's just glowing across the whole space rather than being blocked by the dungeon walls, but you get my point. And if I click it again, it will toggle the torch back off. So that's Carrick, and I could do the same for Niella, Alaric, any light source. And all you have to do is to configure the light source. Like I said, originally it was hard-coded to torches and lanterns and things, but now you can just do it on any item. But we'll look at the torch to start. So it's this light, it's way too far, there we go, light source checkbox. Let me scroll down just a little more because I want to bring the attributes tab in. So that's where we start. From the item, you click the attributes tab, and then light source, by default, your item is going to look like that. It's not configured. So we just check that box. And of course, these fields, I populated these fields. So light radius, dim 30, bright 15 feet, of course. And within Foundry, the brightness should be encompassed by the dimness, i.e. that is to say the dimness should be wider than the brightness. So that's how you do that. And that gives you a 30-foot radius of light for your torch. You can set a duration. And we'll talk about this in just a sec, but emission angle 360 degrees, that's the default. That'll be a full circle. But if you have something like a bullseye lantern, you might want to limit this. In fact, I can show you that in a little bit here. And then you can even set a light color, and that can be pretty much any standard. I could say yellow, or I could say, which is more of a light yellow orange, if I do that kind of a hexadecimal code. In fact, if I just if I hit enter or tab out of there, you see this gives you a sample of the color you're asking for. So I can just do yellow as well, and now it switches to yellow, as you can see. So that's I actually prefer the kind of orangish, yellow-orange school bus color myself. And then for duration, you can set this. You can see it says duration in rounds. You can do a roll formula for light source. So as an example, if you think about light sources in Hyperborea, your typical lanterns use a single vial of lamp oil, which lasts, I believe it's 8 hours, it might be 6 hours, but it's a fixed number, okay? But torches are 1 to 2 hours. Now you can do 1 to 2 hours a couple of different ways, and remember you have to convert hours to rounds. So if you think about how many rounds are in an hour, well, it turns out it's 360 rounds to the hour, because there's 10 rounds in a minute, right? So a round is 6 seconds, but there's 10 minutes in a turn and 6 turns in an hour. All that works out to 360. So you could do something like this, 1d2 times 360. That would give you either 1 hour, you would either get 360 rounds or 720 rounds, 1 or 2 hours. And that would be rules as written. There's your rule formula for a torch. Now, personally, I actually do it a little bit differently. I go 1d6 plus 6 times 60. So what this gives me is a range from 7 to 12 turns, which is 1 hour plus 1 turn, up to a full 2 hours. So essentially it's going to be a smidge over an hour up to 2 hours, but I have at least a range of 6 possible values within that second hour. So it's a little more randomness to it. It's a little bit more unknown, and yet it still sticks within the spirit of the 1 to 2 hours rule. So I actually like this formula a little better. And when I set that and I set this, okay, we'll go ahead and close the torch here. Now when I fire this up on Carrick, now you can see he's got that orangish color. So what happens is when you click this light bulb, what happens is it actually creates an active effect on the character in this case, called light source, and then the name of the item that was clicked. So in this case, I clicked the torch, so it says light source torch. And when I do this, what you can see is, if we start at the details, you see the light bulb icon here, and that's what's applied to my token in the upper left corner. No other information here because I didn't bother filling anything in. But then what we have is the duration is calculated as that d6 plus 6 times 60. So in this case, the system rolled that number. It rolled a 10 effectively. A d6, it must have rolled a 4. Plus 6 is 10 times 60, 600 rounds. And so that is the duration of this torch. And there's no changes that are made otherwise. What happens is the system knows how to interpret the clicking of that light source icon, the light bulb icon. So it creates this effect, which then triggers applying a light source to the token. So if I go ahead and close out of this effect now and we look at the token, what you can see is if we go to light here, 30 and 15, 360, there's the color. So all the things that I had specified in the item are just applied right here. Now I didn't bother doing all these other fields like color intensity, which I just accidentally zeroed out, priority, any of this other stuff down here. All of that I ignored. I just did these first few fields to make it a useful tool and to get it up and running quickly without being overly complex. If you want to do complex stuff, hey, more power to you. Feel free to write your own macros or use a third-party tool or whatever. But this is what Hyperborea does for the moment. If I come up with an interesting reason to add some more stuff, I will certainly do so. Or if someone submits an idea to say, hey, could we add this feature? By all means, do so. I'm always open to requests. This was just what I personally found to be most useful and interesting. So it applies that light. And now, excuse me, like I said, you can do anything as a light source. So if Carrick has, let's say he's got a battle axe, which he does, a flaming magical battle axe. And let's say that can act as a light source because it's flaming. Why not? So we're going to go in here and we're going to click light source. Now we're not going to say it's as light as a torch. So we're going to say it really only gives him 10 feet of dim light and 5 feet of bright within the inner circle. We're going to say, generally speaking, maybe this is an effect that he can summon for 1 turn. Okay, so we're just going to give it a duration of, 1 turn, is 60 rounds. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the emission angle of 360 degrees. And we're going to say his is a little more reddish. So I'm just going to say red. Why not? It's a little crazy, but we'll just go with that for now. And just note that this duration down here, this is for temporary, like conjured items. This is not for the light source. The light source's duration is in here. And that's why I put this in a nice little box, by the way. So, if you uncheck the box, it's gone. But when I check light source, now I've got this boxed section. These are light source properties. So I did that so you have a nice visual break from the other properties that are item specific. These are specific to the light source when that box is checked, okay? So we've got that set on his battle axe now. Now let's see. This is Carrick, so I'm going to go ahead and click this. Now, one thing to be aware of, and you're about to see this, the system only allows you to have one light source active at a time. That's not a Foundry thing, that's just the way I wrote the code. So since I clicked the light bulb, the system saw that he already had a light source turned on, enabled, the torch. So it disabled the light source rather than enabling the flaming axe. But now he has no light source. I can tap it again. Oh, and I apparently have an error in my light source color. So let's go back in here and look at that. What did I have? Apparently it didn't like red. That's weird, but we'll just do it this way, right? We'll just do that, that's fine. Clearly I had not tested it with a regular text, but there we go. Now we've got red. You can see it's very clearly red. Excuse me. I ended up with 2 light bulbs because of that error message. I got a little bug there. I may go back and fix that bug, but for now, just be aware that when you do your colors, you should use the hexadecimal coding. So a hashtag, and then a 6-digit hexadecimal code, which you can look up translators for colors online, and just say, give me turquoise. What is the code for turquoise? And it'll give you the 6 character code for turquoise. So those are readily available online. But there you go. What I'm going to do now is go into his effects, and you can see Battle Axe Flaming. The first one came on, and then it bugged out, so it couldn't apply it, but the effect was still there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to remove both of them. And now when I go back here, now we have no weirdness remaining when I tap this. Single light bulb, red effect. There it is. We go in here, we look at the duration on there. It's going to be that 60 round duration. And that's all it is. It's very simple. Okay? And then a couple of different ways you can handle this. So as you saw, I could go back and click the light bulb here, or I could click the light bulb on the torch. Either one will disable it. What that does is effectively it completely extinguishes the light. You can also manage the effects from here just by disabling, and now it's gone, and then re-enabling, and now it's back on again. Why would you do that? Mostly because there's multiple ways to skin a cat, and the standard behavior of effects is that you expect to be able to disable an effect and re-enable it, except when I do things like Gauntlets of Ogre Power. Now I actually can't do this one because it's managed by an item that the actor owns. So that's by design though. But light sources, I didn't feel the need to put that same restriction in place. The reason that you might even care about that also, in addition to the inventory management, is the duration, because we're going to talk about the next feature, which is the turn tracker. So if I close Carrick now, we'll leave that on him for the moment. This little guy over here, the turn tracker, is the other new feature that I wanted to talk about today. And you can see I've got it set to turn 1. It's super easy to use, okay? So this is the advanced button, advanced turn. If I click that, it goes to turn 2. Now this is doing stuff in the background in the system, including tracking the duration of light sources. So his light source was, 600? Actually, I don't think this is going to change. It tracks it internally. So, it was 420, because that's rolled randomly every time. So previous it was a different number. This time it rolled 420. And what just happened was when I advanced the turn, internally, it subtracted 1 turn's worth of duration, or 60 rounds. So internally, the system now knows that this torch only has 360 rounds left. Okay, so I'm going to actually very quickly demonstrate for you exactly how that works by advancing the turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Couldn't do the math. It would have been 7 turns total. We started at turn 1, so we ended up at turn 8. And that 420 rounds dropped by 60 each time. So when it finally hits 0, or even drops below 0, because you could have a weird number where you go negative, but when it's equal to or less than 0, the light source is removed. You can see effect light source torch on Carrick has expired. He's no longer glowing. The effect is gone. It was deleted. It does not update the inventory. I mentioned I might add this in the future as an optional add-on to subtract inventory. Right now it doesn't do that, but in the future I might do that, and then you might see, oh, your torch was reduced. Now you have 1 instead of the original 2. So for now, it does not affect inventory. That's still a manual thing where you have to say, oh yeah, I used a torch, so now I'm down to 1, just like that. Easy, okay? So what else does the turn tracker do? Because that's not all that it does. It also tracks, obviously it's turns, okay? We're not talking rounds, we're talking turns. This is not intended to be used with combat. It's intended to be used when you're in an exploration type mode. You could be walking around a city, talking to people, and maybe the GM is doing random checks to see if you encounter any street thieves or pickpockets. You could be doing exploration of hexes in the wilderness, hexploration as they call it. And the GM is doing turn-based rolls for random encounters or for weather changes or whatever it happens to be. The GM is tracking, and they may not be doing that every turn. You might be doing it once an hour, the GM. GM might be doing it once every 4 hours or 6 hours or 12 hours, whatever. But you want to track the turns because, when you get to, say, what is 18 turns? Now I can't remember what the math is. How many turns are in an hour? 6. So this is 3 hours in. 18 turns is 3 hours in. So you might do something every 3 hours. So when you get to turn 18, now you're going to say, oh yeah, now I need to check to see if the weather is changing or whatever that happens to be. So you can do anything you want with a turn tracker, but the automated stuff, light sources, also persistent active effects like persistent damage. So let's say you come out of a combat, but you're still suffering acid damage that's going every round for some reason. Well, as soon as the GM advances this 1 turn, that's going to be 60 rounds that just triggered, and that active effect is going to be deleted. Now, one thing to be aware of is it will probably apply that persistent damage. It'll apply it 1 time. So you're not going to get, say, 10 rounds of active damage applied before deleting it. It's just going to do 1 and delete it. Whether that's something the GM wants or not, the GM doesn't have to advance the turn to make that happen. You could actually play out the remaining however many rounds. If there were 5 rounds left of this acid and the players had no way of getting rid of that acid, the GM might just want to leave everything in the combat tracker and advance it round by round to watch that damage apply for the next 5 rounds until it finally disappears. But if you're not worried about anything like that, and you're just leaving the combat and you're going into regular exploration mode, this will remove any persistent effects like that. It also handles longer running spells like a haste or a bark skin or invisibility, which are all between 1 turn and multiple turns. But even so, I've been talking kind of in hypotheticals. Let's actually dig in and talk about some specific items. So let's actually cast some spells, okay? So Carrick, I think, has a couple of spells that he can use. Yes. So I'm going to have him cast haste. I could even do light, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do haste, and I'm going to apply that to Alaric because why not? So now he's hasted, and if we look at haste, the duration is 18 rounds. So that's not even a turn, okay? So we're going to just make some pretend things for a bit here. We applied haste. Let's see, what does Niella have for spells? She might have something interesting. She has Weird Warhammer, so let's go ahead and do that. And she also has Barkskin, so let's do both of those. So she's going to cast Barkskin. She's going to apply it to, just going to minimize that, to Carrick. So we'll apply Barkskin with armor. You can also do the Conjured Barkskin on an unarmored person, but Carrick is wearing armor, so we'll apply Barkskin with armor, so he's got that now. And then back to Niella once again. I think I'm going to have her cast Weird Warhammer, which is at CA rounds. So again, it lasts a very short period of time. And remember, this one summons an ephemeral item or a conjured item, which I can drag to her character sheet, just like that. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if that's going to be deleted or not. So there's the Weird Warhammer. If we look at this item, conjured by the spell, and it has a duration down here of 4 rounds. Now that actually should be, oh yeah, it was at CA, so that's correct. That's 4 rounds, okay? And not a light source. This is the item duration. So we're not in combat, so we're not really counting in rounds. So this isn't necessarily a realistic situation unless maybe we just came out of combat. So we could pretend that these guys just finished a combat, they encountered a skeleton and they killed it very quickly, and their spells are still in effect. Okay, so the Weird Warhammer has not dissipated yet. The haste has not dissipated yet. Barkskin lasts for a number of turns, right? 1 turn plus 1 per CA, so that's going to be like 5 turns. If I look at that, it should be, I think, 5 or 4 or something like that. We'll just verify that. 240 rounds. Okay, let's do the math. That's going to be 4 turns divided by 60. So it's 4 turns. So we've got all these effects in play. Now as the GM, I'm going to say, okay, well, they finished the combat and they did a little more checking. Maybe they're checking around looking for loot or whatever in these sarcophagi that are in this room. And finally the GM says, okay, it's time to advance the turn. So I advance the turn. Well, at this point, you can see the haste has expired because that was only like, what, 18 rounds or something like that. Also, you can see Weird Warhammer has expired. So in the chat, so on the effect, on active effects, you do get a UI alert, as you saw. But on conjured items, you don't. Now that maybe is something that I might change in the future, but for now, that's the way I have it set up. But you do get the chat alerts no matter what, even without the UI messages. So the Weird Warhammer, let's see if that actually worked, because I don't remember. Okay, it did. It deleted the Weird Warhammer from her character sheet. Perfect. That's what I was hoping. I figured I probably wrote the code for that, but I couldn't remember. And of course, his haste, which was an active effect, is gone as well. However, you'll notice that Carrick still has Barkskin on, right? There's no, oh, there is the empowered icon, I guess, is on Carrick on his token right there too, so you can sort of tell. So that's going to last, what did we say it was, 4 turns or something like that? We'll check that really quick here. Yeah, 240 rounds, 4 turns, when I've just advanced 1 turn. So we should have 3 more turns left. So I'm just going to go another turn, still there, another turn, still there, turn number 4, and there it went. You can see the effect, Barkskin with Armor, has expired. Again, we get the chat message as well, and we go in here, and the effect here is gone. So that is the turn tracker and its automatic sort of management capabilities for time-limited effects, ephemeral or conjured items, and light sources. All 3 of those can be handled by the turn tracker. It does all tokens on the map for these temporary effects. So if you've got an actor with a temporary effect, a character, but they don't have a token on the map, but it's just listed in the actor's directory over here, well, that's actually not going to be affected. It only affects tokens on the map because the idea is those are the characters that are in play at that moment. If you've got someone else off screen, even in a parallel time, but in a different part of the map, they should at least have their token on the map, even if they're not currently playing. Or just ignore this whole thing. But the point is, the turn tracker only manages tokens on the scene, the current scene. So let's see. Anything else we want to talk about here? I guess the only other thing I would add is coming soon. I mentioned earlier that I'm probably going to be doing another release just in the next, I don't know, couple of days or something. It'll be probably before the end of this week anyway. And that's going to be release version 1.18.0, I think, or maybe .1, but it'll be 1.18. something. And it's going to be a new feature added to the turn tracker. And I think you guys are going to like it. I'll do a separate video on that because it's going to be, complicated enough where it'll be worth having a full video to demonstrate that feature. It's pretty cool though, and it adds more to what you can do with automation when you're advancing the turn. Okay, so I think that's all I've got for today. Happy gaming, everyone, and I'll be seeing you in Hyperborea. This is Dave signing off.